has genuine significance. Now, I proceed by saying, again, yes, you were designed for accomplishment. You're engineered for success. You're endowed with the seeds of greatness. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You literally were born to win, but it takes a plan. As I conclude this first recording, I'm going to do so with a story. When I was writing my book, Over the Top, and if you did not get your book with a set of tapes, if you do not have a copy of it, I encourage you to pick up a copy of Over the Top. Now, much of the information is in these tapes. But you see, when you listen to something, that appeals to you emotionally. When you read it, that appeals to you logically. If you read it and hear it, then you're far more inclined to take action on it. So I encourage you to pick up a copy. I'd finished the book. My daughter, who happens to be in our live audience this evening, was the editor. And we had more fun writing that book together. She's the best editor by far I have ever had. We completed the manuscript. We sent it to the publisher, and he promptly packed it up and sent it back and said, how can you tell people how to go over the top when you haven't identified what the top is? I thought to myself, well, that's be a snap. I worked for 2 solid months. I would write, and no, that's not it. I'd write some more. No, that's not it. I'd try again. I'd get out and take those long walks, and nothing was happening. I mean, I didn't have a clue. Then one day, the redhead and I were in Shreveport, Louisiana. We were there visiting her sister, who's in a nursing home. She has MS. Many of the people in that home are beyond human help. When we walk in there, I'm a solution-oriented guy. Somebody says, here's a problem. I say, take step number 1 is this, step number 2 is this, step number 3 is that. Some of those people, unfortunately, are beyond that human help I spoke of. The redhead is not burdened with the belief that she's got to solve people's problems. She just walks in and grabs them and starts hugging and starts telling them how pretty they are, how much she loves them, how glad she is to see them. And they gather around her like bees at a hive. They really are there. And on that particular day, I watched it, and I couldn't handle it. I walked out. As I walked out, I was praying. I said, Lord, give me that kind of heart. Make me have that kind of compassion for my fellow human being. Touch me so that I will have that kind of spirit. In a few minutes, I felt better. I walked back in. They were in the big meeting room. My wife and her sister were seated at the table. I walked in and sat down, and all of a sudden, it started to come. The only piece of paper I had was the back of the motel bill, which I had just paid. I took the sheet of paper out, the bill out, and I started writing. 90% of what this is what I wrote in a few minutes that I'd struggled with for 2 months. You're at the top when you clearly understand that failure is an event, not a person. That yesterday ended last night, and today is your brand new day. You've made friends with your past, are focused on the present, and optimistic about the future. You're at the top when you know that success, a win, doesn't make you, and failure, a loss, doesn't break you. When you're filled with faith, hope, and love, and live without anger, greed, guilt, envy, or thoughts of revenge. You're at the top when you're mature enough to delay gratification and shift your focus from your rights to your responsibilities. You're at the top when you know that failure to stand for what is morally right is the prelude to being the victim of what is criminally wrong. You're at the top when you're secure in who you are, so you are at peace with God and in fellowship with man. You're at the top when you've made friends of your adversaries and have gained the love and respect of those who know you best. When you understand that others can give you pleasure, but genuine happiness comes when you do things for others. You're at the top when you're pleasant to the grouch, courteous to the rude, and generous to the needy. You're at the top when you love the unlovable, give hope to the hopeless, friendship to the friendless, and encouragement to the discouraged. You're at the top when you can look back in forgiveness, forward in hope, down in compassion, and up with gratitude. You're at the top when you know that he who would be the greatest among you must become the servant of all. You're at the top when you recognize, confess, develop, and use your God-given physical, mental, and spiritual abilities to the glory of God and for the benefit of mankind. You're at the top when you stand in front of the Creator of the universe and he says to you, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." After I identified the top, I realized what I'd really done. I'd identified the bottom. That's the base. That's the foundation upon which you can build any kind of career, whether it's in education, athletics, business, medicine, law, accounting, computers, or whatever. I believe these are principles that will make a difference. Well, here I am back in the studio. The only thing I'm going to suggest is that because this particular story was recorded in a different environment, the acoustics and the sound will be just a little different. In no way should that distract from the message itself, and that's what I want you to hear. Now, let's go to another live audience. But what happens to people when they have no hope? I have a good friend. Her name is Pam Lantos. Pam was an overweight, depressed housewife. She had been under the care of a psychiatrist for 5 years, who assured her every time they got together that she would always need him because you are never going to get any better. I am your only hope. Bottom line is, she literally was sleeping from 12 to 18 hours every day. She only got up to prepare her children and husband breakfast, then she went back to bed. She got up then to prepare them dinner, and she went back to bed. That was her daily routine, and it had been going on for several years. And then one day she heard an advertisement on the radio, and the advertisement was about a health club, and it kind of piqued her interest. And as a matter of fact, for the first time in a long time, she caught just a glimmer of hope. As a story within a story, General Robinson Dreisner is a friend of mine. He was a prisoner of war in the Hanoi Hilton for about 7 years. 5.5 years he was in solitary confinement in a minute, small cell. I guess that's the same thing, isn't it? Minute and small. Well, minute's even smaller than small. Well, anyhow, that little old bitty place that he was confined in. And the way he kept from literally losing his mind was that he would jog by the hour right there in place in his cell. And his cell on occasion was so depressing in there, he would take his underwear and stuff it in his mouth and scream at the top of his voice. He did not want the enemy to know that they were getting to him. And he said one day in the depth of his despair, he was down on the floor in this little cinder block cell, and he started crawling around and putting his eye up against the wall, hoping he could see something on the outside. There was a minute crack, and he saw a single leaf. And he told us in one of our classes here, our Born to Win seminar, he said, "You will never know what it meant to me to see a single green leaf after having seen no sign of life other than my tormentors all of these years." I don't know how the story impacts you, but that day I made a new resolution. And that was I'd be very careful about what I complained about, and very sensitive to the things that I have to be grateful for. Pam Lantos that day, listening to the radio, caught somewhere just a glimpse, a glimmer of hope in what that commercial said. She decided to get up and go down to that club, and she watched the people there, and everybody was smiling, everybody was busy, everybody seemed to be in a good mood and having fun. She decided to join. Well, you see, that's step number one, and that's so important. We've all got to have that first step. My friend Joe Saba says, you don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. And so Pam saw that. She had taken that first step. She joined the club. And when she started exercising, she started feeling so much better. As a matter of fact, she got a job selling the enrollments in that club and was very successful at it. But she was very spasmodic. She was up and down. She was on the roller coaster, because you don't cure depression like that, just by a few exercises and a few weeks. And so her manager gave her a set of my tapes, which contains basic information I'll be sharing with you every week in these classes. And she started listening to those tapes, and that was an encouragement that she needed to fuel the hope. She stabilized her productivity, which consistently got better and better. And then she decided she wanted to sell radio advertising, because she really loved radio. She applied for her favorite station. They weren't even interviewing anybody, wouldn't even talk to her. So all she did, because she had that hope, and if you've got hope, you'll take action, she just showed up at 8 o'clock when the manager got there and sat just outside of his office from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock when he left. She did it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and on the 4th day, the manager said, I believe this girl wants the job. He interviewed her, and bottom line is, she sold him, she got the job, and almost immediately she became number one in production, number one salesperson there.